Explain for us the background to this story. If people who don't know, that Janice Hunter, David Hunter's wife, had been ill for some time.
Yes, she had, and they moved out to Cyprus. David worked in the mines in the northeast of England until very much until they were about to close. He was working 6 or 7 days a week, and they saved up every penny. And they moved out to Cyprus when they retired, and he had a really good time with his wife living in Cyprus until she had blood cancer, and it got worse and worse, and she was in a lot of pain. She asked him to end her life, and in December of 2021, he did so because of that request from her. They'd been in a relationship for over 50 years. It was a loving relationship. We called lots of witnesses who talked about how loving that relationship and how perfect that relationship was. And then he was arrested and put on trial for murder. And a little over a week ago, he was found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. So, which was a very good result for him because obviously, if he's found guilty of murder here in Cyprus, he'd get a life sentence. He'd die in prison. But now, when he was found guilty of manslaughter, there was always this possibility that he'd be released. We appeared on Thursday last week and we submitted mitigation on his behalf. We drew on case law from throughout the common law countries, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the UK, about how courts deal with these kind of cases. Because a case like this has never been dealt with before in Cyprus. It's the first euthanasia type case in Cyprus. And we turned up today for the sentence to be given. And he was given a sentence of 2 years imprisonment because of the time he served. He was actually released from court today, which was very exciting for all of us.
And have you spoken to him and his family? How does he feel today?
Yes, I've been with him since he's been released. He's elated. He's very pleased to be out of prison. He was treated very kindly in prison in Nicosia, but for someone of his age, it's a very difficult place to be. He's spoken to his daughter over the phone when I've been with him. She's very emotional about it, but it allows them the chance to grieve together. And him spending any longer in prison didn't serve any proper purpose. So we're very pleased with the decision of the court today.
Given what he's been through since, does he have any feelings of regret or possibly wishing he'd done something different? Does he regret his decision of helping his wife to take her own life?
It's a difficult one for him because I think he's thought over what he did so many times whilst he's been in prison. But he did what he did because he loved her. She was in pain. She kept on asking him to end her life. So uh, I think, well, it's definitely why he's acted in the way he did. And I don't think he particularly regrets that part of it. Of course, spending the last 17 months in prison was not something he wanted to do. He's of course grieving for his wife still. It was such a long relationship. They did absolutely everything together for over 50 years. They were as close as anything. But in regards to what he did and the pain she was under, I don't think he really regrets that.
And then just more broadly, in the hearing today, the judge said no one can choose when someone's life will end. We take into account that the sentence must send that message to society. We determine a jail sentence is unavoidable. But as you were saying, then the maths of how long he'd already been in custody meant he's been released. Has this led to a broader discussion in Cyprus about assisted dying?
So it has in Parliament in September, I believe they're going to start discussing this. The Human Rights Committee of the Cypriot Parliament is looking at euthanasia, and that wouldn't have happened but for this case. So I think they will start looking at it. Whether that turns into something concrete or not, who knows? But the Cypriot people I've spoken to in Cyprus, and I've been out here on this case maybe 14 times, because in Cyprus a trial doesn't run consequently, it doesn't run every day. So you have to come back. And I've been out about 14 times, and there's no Cypriot person I've spoken to who disagree with what he did in relation to how they would behave if the same thing was happening with someone they love. So there's, despite the fact that Cyprus is a reasonably conservative religious country, that the kind of opinion here is not against what he did, given how closely Cypriot people really care for their families.